Board of Directors of Sandy Pines to order. Our first order of business is the invocation. Jenny?
Shall we pray? Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this absolutely beautiful day. We just thank you for the blessings you give us each and every day. I thank you for everyone that's present here tonight, and I thank you for their interest, and I thank you for their participation. Lord, I thank you for all the board members that have worked tirelessly on the items and the things that we've had come at us this year, Lord. I know it seems like it's always something, but you're always here with us, helping us, giving us guidance and wisdom, and we thank you for that. Please bless our meeting tonight. Help us to all have a great night. In the night we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kimberly, could you do the roll call for us, please?
Carpenter,
Here.
Ellen Carpenter, Rick Day,
Here.
Bob Dashenda,
Here.
Jenny Hager, Kelly Johnson,
Here.
Larry Munger,
Here.
Paul Pepple,
Here.
Stephanie Sapanya, and Scott Whiten.
Here.
All present, one remote.
Thank you. Our next item of business is the approval of new members. Jeff, could you give us some demographics and numbers for our new members for July of 2023?
Absolutely. So, total July sales, we had 34 that took place in July, 17 through the for sale by number process, 16 through the sales department, and 1 transfer. Total new members to the park were 53 new members, 1 member in their 20s, 9 in their 30s, 15 in their 40s, 16 in their 50s, 11 in their 60s, and 1 in their 70s. And that's a summary for July sales.
Thank you. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the new members for July of 2023.
So moved. Supported.
Paul was the motion.
Rick was the motion.
Rick was the motion, and Bob was second. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Our next order of business is the approval of the notes for the July 2023 Board of Directors meeting. These were distributed to the board. Do any of the board members have questions or comments about the July 2023 notes?
Motion to accept.
Kelly gave us a motion. Paul supported. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Our next item of business is the financial statements, approval of the financial statements. At this time, I would really like to thank Jenny Hager. She's rotating off the board. She'll be leaving us as our treasurer, but she's agreed to stand and help us with some finance, the finance committee. Jenny, do you have any comments?
So the Finance Committee did meet last Wednesday, and we also had a special meeting, when was that, the week before, or the day before? Anyway, we had a special meeting with the board, the accountants that do our annual review, and the Finance Committee. So we have looked at the year end with the CPA firm. They answered a lot of questions that we had to make sure we were doing things correctly and we're doing things for the better of Sandy Pines and tax purposes and things like that. And we also had a lot of confidence that they are looking closely at things that that they need to look closely at and guiding us with our tax return and different issues. So we had a good meeting there. We had a finance meeting where we went over the budget for next year, the capital and operating, a lot of good discussion. Everybody was in agreement about moving forward with that. We voted on that. We voted both the capital and operating budget to move forward to the board. And they also looked at the July financial statements, and the park is in just a great shape and doing well financially, and everything passed unanimously with voting and the financial statements and everything for the month of July. So we had another great meeting, and we are looking for a couple new members yet, so if anybody is interested, you can fill out an application at the administration office. Thanks.
Thanks, Jenny. Kimberly, could you give us an overview of the July 2023 Sandy Pines Wilderness Trails financial statements?
Sure. As of at the end of July 2023, our financial review for Sandy Pines, I took a look at the monthly days cash and reserve. This is something we look at on a month-to-month basis. I do want to note that there is fluctuation at this, and I spent some time over this last month looking at the comparison of how our cash flow for the operations works. And we typically trend on a higher days cash and reserve earlier in the fiscal year because the majority of our operation cash is received at the beginning of our fiscal season in October. So we're going to notice a significant days cash and reserve at that time. However, the majority of our expenditures come in September, so that money has to be held for those purposes. So through my review and analytic, I looked at specifically for July where we're sitting right now, and through the trends from year to year, we know it's going to go down from here. But as of right now, when I take the balance of the operation cash on the July financial statements and subtract out the pool reserve, then I also took it a little bit step further, knowing there's going to be cash going back into the operations to fund the capital expenditures that were purchased through the year. And then I took our budgeted operating expenses to get our average daily expense. So just to give you some perspective on that, to operate this park, it's $20,442 budgeted dollars per day to operate this park. So $20,442, and that's off the budgeted numbers. So from that perspective, our days as of July is 177. I did some different projections, and these are obviously just projections to see where we're going to be at. One projection, worst case scenario, is we could drop to about 105 days by the end of the month. That's the worst case scenario. We're trending a little bit higher, so I'm thinking around the 120 days is what's going to be more likely. And again, that's just projection, so I kind of watch that on a month-to-month basis, so I just wanted to kind of put that out there as well. That's pretty close to where we ended at the end of fiscal year last year. So we will see what August brings, and then the final month of September. So for administration, what we're noticing in the month of July, inspection income has spent 41% of our budget. We're still in the midst of the summer months in July, so there's more of that with permits and so forth and activity in the park to come through. Flea market has reached 48% of the budget. Again, we have some more flea market dates coming up. So more of that should come later on. Our tree removal is 41% over budget. We were aware of that and looking to absorb that through other areas in the budget. Cases like that, if there's a situation once we reach budget, but there's an issue where the tree needs to come down because the insurance issue with it is gonna be higher, we have to make those calls. But overall, our net expense for administration has met 79% of our budget to date, so we're sitting pretty good there. Maintenance income, we have reached 12% of our income. We're within 12% to date within winterizations. So I do want to note that that's lower because the majority of that revenue and income is going to come with the reservations of our winterizations. So we're going to be completing those. You're going to see more of the trend of the maintenance income coming at the end of the month. Our holding tank income has reached 85% of our budget to date. So that's understandable there. Overall net expense is $29,000 under last year, so we're actually sitting pretty good overall, and 71% of the budget for maintenance has been met there. Our security income, we have received 78% of the income to date, or $19,000 over last year. We're going to notice an increase in that security income is going to be guest passes in these last couple months of the year. Overall net expense is $4,000 under last year, and we met 69% of budget, so we're sitting good within security as well. Recreation income is $18,000 under last year, but I want to note that much of that is related to the change in items sold within the Happy Shack, and we have met 70% of the budget there, so it is sitting good with the changes that have been made there. And overall, the net expense within the recreation department is $18,000 under last year. And we've only spent 55% of the budget to date, so we're halfway through the season, we're sitting pretty good there. Resort net income, you are going to notice that's about 53% over budget of last year. The major reason of that is because last year, the 8.6 was our largest COLA increase, and we're noticing it across the board with cost of living. And you're going to see in the next couple months that that's going to be absorbed through the expenses that we see just in keeping the operations going within the park. Within the leases department, you're going to notice a decrease in the contracts. The majority of that is because the country store has been moved from a lease contract to operations within the park and garden department. Then with the park and garden department, you will notice the gross income is up 19% over budget. And again, that's because the addition of the country store and cafe has been moved over to that department line. Supplies for the park and garden do show that they are up 300% over budget, and that's about an $8,000 expense. And that's related just to the startup costs, getting things started in the country store and the cafe there. And that's going to be absorbed through those additional profits we're noticing within those areas. And overall, the net profit for Park and Garden is $28,000 over prior year and has met 77% of the budget expectations. Golf carts, our golf cart rentals, the majority of the rental for that revenue is recorded pre-season when the reservations take place. The income is recorded at the time of the reservation. So currently, overall net income is up 22% and 40% over budget. The retail center is on hold with the gas pump. There has been a significant delay in the revenue recognition there. We ran into some snags and delays there, just with the changes with the contractor, and then trying to get that installed in the midst of the season when we really had hoped to get this done at the beginning of the season. But we do have the internet secured there now and working with the contractor to get that up and running. So soon you may get your gas on site here and not have to drive across the road. Repair and maintenance to the country store, you also know this is up significantly. That's just due to the repairs that need to be done within those buildings. And last, our sales department. We are still noticing that the sales within the park are up and over the for sale by owner. So more people are utilizing our sales department, which is nice. And we are noticing site rental income is down a little bit from prior year, but it looks like it's kind of picking up at the end of the season too, so we'll see where that goes. But overall, our sales net income is down about $100,000 from last year to date, but it has met 99% of the overall budget. And overall, for Sandy Pines, the net income is up $500,000 7% over last year. So recapping over my review, the majority of that is the revenue that was brought in through resource services to help carry us over these next 2 months of expenses. So that completes my review.
Do any of the board members have questions or comments on financial statements for Sadie Hines Wilderness Trails?
Move we accept.
Second, second.
Second.
So that was Bob and Mary.
Yeah. Move we accept the budget as read.
All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Kimberly, could you go through the Lake Monterey Golf Course financial statements, please?
Sure. For Lake Monterey Golf Course, you will notice that the current cash is up about $188,000 over last year, 35%. And overall net income is up about $25,000 or 21%. The majority of the increase was on the green fees. When you look at the revenue off of the financial statements, the green fees are up across the board. The majority of those green fees that you're seeing an increase on are member green fees. So members are still getting out there to golf, which is nice to see. But we are also seeing quite a bit of the income generated from the clubhouse with the food, beer and wine, and the merchandise. This last month, we actually saw a significant increase in the merchandise. So before, the food and wine was kind of trailing a little bit higher than the merchandise, but we're seeing a lot of movement in the merchandise in the month of July. So that's nice to see as well. And then within the expense side, the fertilizer, again, that's what incurred the most expense and the repair and maintenance. But with the increase in costs overall within the economy, we're noticing those are the areas that are getting hit hard in the supplies of those items. That's my review for the Monterey.
Do any of the board members have questions or comments on the Lake Monterey Golf Course financial statements for July? I'll accept a motion at this time to approve.
Supported.
Larry and
Jenny.
All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Kimberly, could you please go through the 2023-2024 final budget prior to our approval, please?
Sure. So at the beginning of the season, when March came around, or I should say April came around, the end of March is when we looked to see where the COLA increases as of the end of March, because per our bylaws, that is the increase that applies to the operation dues for the next year. And that amount is 4.9%, which when taken off of the operation dues and then also the annual capital, just the regular the regular $200 annual capital that's consistent, that equals $77 per member. So one thing I want to note that was discussed in length by our accountants, external accountants, by the finance committee and by the board, is that increase of the dues, of the CPI with the dues is always put back into operations. We also reviewed with our legal counsel to see what areas we could do to help fund that. Because as you know, over the past couple years, we have transferred funding from operations cash into capital to fund some of those larger projects. We were blessed that we were able to fund the pool with $1.5 million from operation cash into capital. But one thing to keep in mind there is when that money comes into operations cash, it's taxed up front. And even though it's moved into capital and used for capital, we're still taxed on that. So to kind of look at that perspective of, and at the same time, trying to maintain that healthy cash reserve of 90 to 100 days, we want to make sure that we keep that balance there. So it's a fun financial balance to make sure we have enough in operations, but yet still funding capital. So what we looked at in length is what amount should be transferred, or could be transferred into annual capital. So this is no change to the memberships or anything, but of that $77, we talked about, would it make sense to move just 4.9% of the 200 into capital? or a little bit more. So we did a little bit more analytics to say, if we were to take the COLA increase on that capital over the past 9 years, 9 years, or 6 years, I think I looked from 2017 forward, what would that amount be? And it ended up being around $47. So we decided it would make sense to take that 77 and kind of meet in the middle there with $35 of the increase. So we're still keeping a buffer in the operations. So the proposal is going to be up at 77, 35 will go into the annual capital, and the remaining will stay in operation dues. So that's the proposal that's been brought to the board today. Making that change, increases our net expense on the bottom line about $37 or $37,000. And overall, the proposed budget cash flow increase during the year would be $396,000. So again, after extensive review, we think that that would be sustainable for Sandy Pines. And then to add on the fee schedule, there were items within the fees that were talked about, and a couple items that were reviewed. We had a few items that were presented by the Finance Committee as well as the board, and then also administration. So we reviewed those all collectively. The first increase that's being proposed is an increase to the boat dock from $500 to $525. Golf cart and moped stickers will have an increase from $15 to $20. So just a $5 increase there. Pump outs, we are noticing the significant increase in the expenses with the utilization. Number one, the salary of the employee, or to maintain the salary for employees that are maintaining those services, but more extensively, the repairs on trucks. Vehicles are so much harder to replace, and then when you do need to repair them, the expense for repairing them is up significantly as well. In addition to just the gas, we all know the gas is up too. So the increase on the pump out is going to go up $1 per pump out. So from $15 to $16, and then that was spread within the plans as well. And then for the bullpen, we're noticing significant increase in demand for our bullpens. And looking at the market around us, we felt it would make sense to Sandy Pines to put an increase on that as well. So the bullpens, the annual rate is moving from $330 to $345. What we proposed here is to increase that the same percentage as what our COLA is. And then also mailboxes, we are noticing significant demand with the operations of the mailboxes. So the mailbox price is being proposed to move from $35 to $50. The camping, another item that we did talk about. I do want to mention too with the mailboxes, one thing that we also took in perspective there was what the prices cost in the local post offices, so we did some review there as well. Within the camping, so one item that both administration and the board and the finance committee were collective on is if the increase for operational dues is around 5%, it shouldn't only go to the members, and we should be applying that to the outside people coming in as well. So we applied that 5% to our camping as well as our seasonal rates. The seasonal rates were bumped up a little bit as well, just when we looked at comparison of our local competitors around the area. We have some very close local campgrounds, and seeing what their seasonal rates are, we're significantly under. So to lessen the burden to our members, it makes sense to increase that portion to be a little bit more competitive. Permits, we did increase a little bit as well. Again, we looked at the local PCI rates, and the permit for a building is going to go up from 40 to 45, and the electric permit from $84 to $90. Background check, we also are going to increase the background check. This is one area that just, we have individuals that have to do background checks regularly, and the price that we charge for those right now to the outside people coming in to be screened for Sandy Pines, and there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes for that. We're gonna move that from $35 to $75. And then the North Shore building, we also looked at as well. The expense in regards to cleaning within this North Shore building it's pretty expensive. When we looked at the amount that it was to rent the building, we weren't covering our costs at all. So the change that we're looking at, we did increase that a little bit across the board, but one of the more significant changes is 100+ people for a small event will change from $300 to $500, and 1 to 99 people from $150 to $300. So just needing to cover the cost there. Overall, that is the review that has been presented or proposed for the operations budget for Sandy Pines. Within the capital budget, we went over the different projects assigned for the year. We do have the FEMA CC1 building that was actually scheduled to be on the capital plan for next year, but with the scheduling of things, that's actually going to be pushed to the fiscal year 2025. That is going to help out a little bit in planning because we do need to make plans to put a drain field into phase 3. We do have the funding proposed for the paved road resurfacing, repair to the dam and upgrades, regular mechanical services for HVAC and water softeners, replacement of the cabin room, an electric compactor is an equipment ad that we have on there, a regular replacement of a maintenance truck that's on a rotational basis as just to keep our fleet up to date. And then within the member amenities, we have resurfacing to one of our recreation courts, entrance lights at the gates, and then some updates to our playground equipment. And then within administration, regular upgrades to the computer equipment. And then last, within security, within security, replacement of the patrol vehicle, a patrol boat, the lake buoys, upgrades to the gates. And then we also have funding available for fitness equipment. And then in park and garden, a utility vehicle. There's a huge need there to replace the utility vehicle there. That's a safety concern. And then last, under sales and camping, a mini split for our 18 cabin, and then replacement and updates to our campsite picnic tables. So, and that was reviewed in detail by both the finance committee and the board of directors.
Do any of the board members have questions or comments about the 2023-2024 budget?
Yes, does you want to mention the 2 new fees that we're adding for the permits?
What was the question?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, that is a change, and that was the resolution from last month's meeting, if you would like to.
All right. I'll explain it since the Lake Kibbeney and myself have been meeting with Eagle in regards to the docks. So we'll get a little bit more detail in some of the old business, but there's 2 new fees that are added on the fee schedule. If you want to keep your dock in year-round, we are a seasonal campground. The expectation from the state is you pull your dock effective November 1. If you don't pull your dock, you need an Eagle permit. Historically, Eagle has stated you get a letter from the property owner, which is Sandy Pines, so you get a letter from the park president authorizing the member to go do the Eagle permit process. Eagle will no longer allow us to do that. Members can no longer pull their own permits for any shoreline work or docks. So the 2 new fees are, it's a $100 fee for Sandy Pines to go out on the website, complete all the paperwork. We got to go through designs and drawings with members if you want to leave your dock in the lake. And then Eagle charges another $100 for the permit. So this is really non-negotiable from Eagle in the state of Michigan. If you you want to leave your dock in over the season, during the off-season, you'll need to pay this. Now, the bright side to this is, it's a one-time fee, unless you do any major repairs to your dock, or it's damaged and you have to pull your dock out and you have to replace it. Then you have to go through that entire process again. So those 2 new fees you'll see on the schedule.
Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Support. Adam and Jenny. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda are comments from myself and then from Jeff.
Ellen,
Yes.
we want to do the golf course budget?
Oh, okay, yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'll just quick share here, for the golf course, we reviewed all of the revenue, as we've mentioned, on a month-to-month basis, we know serving fees going up, as well as the food sales, so we did incorporate, those increases to push the expectation, to the golf course on those items. So there's a proposed overall gross increase of about 13% on the income, and then the increase on the expenses, because we've been seeing the repair and maintenance increases going up and the fertilizer, just to absorb the cost of those increases. We ended up proposing the increase of about 9% there. So overall, overall that amount is about a 40% increase overall to the net income budget. So we will look at increasing, or proposing those increases next month. So, and that was sent to the board prior to this meeting. And then last for the capital, a couple of the capital items for the Lake Monterey Golf Course include a blower for the back of a tractor, in addition to a drain field at the golf course that needs to be completed, and rebuilding of a bridge by the number 18 tee. And that's the review for Lake Monterey.
Do any of the board members have questions or comments on the Lake Monterey Golf Course proposed budget?
Support.
Telling you, right? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay. Really, all I want to say today is thank you for coming. I really appreciate your participation, and I really appreciate everybody using good manners and being civil, and we'll continue that through the comment portion later. When we do get to the comment portion, I'll remind you that you need to identify yourself, and it's comments, not questions. Tomorrow, we will be having our annual meeting. I'll have more to say there, and that is questions and answers. So that's the place if you want to ask more questions and get more answers, that's the place. If you haven't voted, please vote. And once again, I want to thank Jenny for all of her hard work, and especially Jeff.
Yes, thank you. Just some brief comments as well. Ellen hit a lot of them. I can't believe it's the end of the season almost, right? It's August. It seems like we're just up here. So we've had a great season. We've got a great staff, great board. Members have been awesome as well. So everybody, thank you for your patience, your kindness, and willing to have constructive conversations. We had a lot of good turnouts for the town halls for the golf course proposal. A lot of great questions. It forced myself, only being here for 4 seasons now, to dig into some of that history. We've got a great community here, and it's been a positive season, and we just want to say thank you and keep it rolling. We'll have more comments tomorrow at the annual meeting, so thank you.
The next item on our agenda is old business, and Jeff, I think you pretty much have these 4 items.
Yay. All right. So we wanted to get back to you on some of the old business that we've been talking about throughout the season here. Phase 2 pool. The park was presented with a corrective action request for that access road that's currently in the park right now in Phase 2. We did submit our corrective action to Eagle this month ahead of schedule. Our plans are communicated also on our website with the site plan. We've relocated one site, 702, to another portion of the park. We thank those members for working with us on that. And the new access road is going to go down the middle of the park. And you're already going to start seeing some construction here. We had some trees removed this week. And the rest of that construction plan will kick off really Tuesday after Labor Day. The majority of it will start taking place during the off-season, with number 1 making that road down the middle of the park, the new access point for the pool in that park. That secondary access road that's there now, we're still working on what we're going to do with that road. A couple of ideas that have come to the pool committee as well as myself. Skinny that down so you can't have any motor traffic, vehicle traffic, golf cart traffic, but maybe make it a walkway or a bikeway, so another access into the park. But the corrective action is tied to the actual construction of the project, and by the start of the season 2024, that access road, old access road, will no longer be utilized for any kind of vehicle traffic. And we did get the response from Eagle today, it's on their website as well, that they've approved that action plan, so we're going to proceed forward with that. Item number 2, boat docks permits process. I'll talk briefly about that with the fees. Again, the process is if any member would like to keep their dock in during the off-season, you need to give a call to the park inspector and/or member service, or email them, and then you need to provide your site number, name, and a reason why you want to keep that in during the off-season. We will then reach back out to you and start the permitting process. We'll get the Sandy Pines permit fee rolling, and then we'll need to take some additional information from you. What kind of dock is it? Is it a wooden dock? Is it an aluminum dock? What's the size of it? Things of that nature. And then we will fill that paperwork out, and we have to submit that to Eagle. We're still working through the process of pulling the docks out. If you pull the dock out, we still have the rule out there that no docks in the green space. We have had some recommendations to, hey, during a period of time, can we leave those docks if you're pulling them out by your boat sticks and things of that area. We'll get some further direction on that at our September board meeting. The permitting process, according to Eagle, Jim Buchanan, who's our lake committee chair, he and I have met with them twice now in the last 3 weeks. The most recent one is Wednesday. The permitting process for approval or accept or reject of your permit is running 30 to 60 days. So we're getting tight on that November 1st time frame, and even tighter if we have members here that plan on leaving in September or October. We're trying to have them expedite that process, and they haven't said no, but we know working with some of those agencies, they're pretty taxed right now. So a couple of other things that we want to keep in mind. This kind of dovetails into Eagle will actually be, they're planning on being on site here at Sandy Pines either in September or October. So, excuse me, the state is trying to now come out and take a look at campgrounds. This isn't just a Sandy Pines, hey, we want to come see you. They're actually coming out of their offices and they're going into campgrounds now. They're going to start putting eyes on our shoreline. What do we have in the lake? Has anybody done any shoreline improvements, seawalls, riprap, things of that nature? They have contacted us and said they will want to audit our paperwork for any shoreline projects that have been done here at Sandy Pines, and they're going to go back 6 years to make certain that we have the proper paperwork. If we don't, then there's a corrective action period again, and then we'll talk about, what's the next step out of that. They went anywhere from, Sandy Pines could be fine to simply what we did with the phase 2 pool access. Get us a corrective action plan, make sure you meet the correction action plan in a timely manner, and then all will be good. So we won't know more until September, October when they're on site. So if you see park inspector, myself, we're gonna have some staff walking around the shoreline, walking around. We have to identify seawalls that are out there. We have to identify a bunch of stuff on the shoreline. We have to gather that information, and we have to provide that to Eagle. On the flip side of that, Eagle has this giant database. We've asked Eagle to provide their information to us. What do you have from a Sandy Pines perspective as well for permits? So they're pulling that information. We're going to compare those. So stay tuned on that one. Island update. So July, we had a member come up and ask, what are we doing with Goose Pool Island out here? And so again, we brought that up to our lake committee, and we have a couple of volunteers that are trying a couple things. One, we put a spray down on there. It's an environmentally safe spray, but it basically deters the geese from eating the grass, and then they fly away. So we've put 2 applications on there. The feedback has been that they've seen less geese there, which is good. And so we're trying to get a regular scheduled maintenance out there to clean up the aftermath that's on that island. So we're trying a couple of things to get that island back together and make it a beautiful island like it was in the past. That's kind of our test I continue to get calls from members, what are we doing about the geese? Our process continues to be, every year, we apply for a permit to go count the eggs in the nests and count and find out where the locations are. And we have to submit that to the state, and then the state will approve a permit to relocate the eggs or the geese. They have not approved those permits since COVID. 2020, 2021, no approval because of COVID. 2022, 2023, they didn't approve those because of avian flu. So we're going to continue to follow our process, but we're trying a couple of things. If those work, then we can provide communication to the members. Here's the stuff that we're using on the island. It appears to work. We can try and get some at the Park and Garden. You can purchase it there, and then you can apply it around your site as well. And this would be on top of some of the stuff Steve DeArmond communicated at the beginning of the season. With you can put some string around there. You can put some sensors that go off with beeps that deter them and they can fly away. So we're testing Goose Pool Island. We want to make it beautiful again, and then we'll submit at the beginning of the season some of the stuff that worked, and hopefully the rest of the community can use those and move on. Last one I have is, as Ellen stated, we're having an annual meeting. We'll take writing questions there. I do have some writing questions from July that we have not responded to. We communicated July that the face-to-face meeting in July would focus in on town halls for the golf course proposal. So we still have July writing questions as well. So we'll try to make certain that we're stay within that hour time frame and answer all your questions and give you a quick park update and golf course update. And that's all I have for old business.
Thank you. Under new business, We have a resolution that we're going to be voting on tonight. This resolution has to do with adding what we call a significant other, and there will be a definition in here. This is something that people have asked for. We read it, we talked about it, the committee talked about it, the rules committee talked about it, the board committee talked about it. We put it out there last month. We've not gotten any comments, pro or con. So I'm going to read the old language first, then the new language, and then we'll vote. Resolution number 081823A, resolution to amend Rule Book Handbook. Whereas the bylaws of Sandy Pines Wilderness Trails Incorporated, Article 8, Section 6E, gives the Board of Directors the power to adopt, amend, rescind, and repeal rules and regulations relating to the use of Sandy Pines property and the conduct of its members and their guests. Whereas Rules Section, Definition of Terms, Section E, Associate Members, are members' spouses, members' children and their spouses, members' parents, stepchildren, and those children under legal guardianship 16 years and older. A membership who has no other associate member may designate one associate member. This may not change more than one time per year. Whereas the Board of Directors for the health, safety, and welfare of Sandy Pines believes it is in the best interest of Sandy Pines to amend and clarify the rules and regulations. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Directors of Sandy Pines Wilderness Trails Incorporated does hereby approve the following amendments and additions to the rules and regulations relating to rules section definition of terms currently located on page 9 of the Sandy Pines Rules, Regulations, and Bylaws Handbook. E, associates. Our members' spouse, members' adult children and their spouses, adult grandchildren and their spouses, members' parents, stepchildren, and those children under legal guardianship 16 years and older. A membership who has no other associate may designate one associate. This may not change more than one time per year. An associate would be allowed one significant other at the discretion of the member. Both parties must be at least 21 years of age or older. Significant other definition means that a relationship exists between two people, neither of whom are married, that is intended to remain indefinitely and where there is a joint responsibility for each other's common welfare. Be it resolved that the Board of Directors of Sandy Pines Wilderness Trails Incorporated does hereby approve the above resolution. Does anybody have any comments or questions about this before we go further? I'll accept a motion to vote on this.
So moved.
Support.
Larry, Kimberly, could you do the roll call vote, please?
Kelly Johnson,
Yes.
Larry Munger,
Yes.
Paul Buckle,
Yes.
Stephanie Stefania, Scott Wyman,
Yes.
Ellen Carpenter,
Yes.
Rick Day,
Yes.
Bob Deckinga,
Yes.
and Jenny Hagan.
Yes.
All approved.
Another item of new business, the Board of Directors is been discussing and will continue to discuss over the next meeting and possibly over the off-season, our committees. We've been having a lot more applications and participation. We really appreciate that. But we do need to update and kind of streamline our application process. We also want to look at which committees are inactive or we think they're unnecessary. So there might be a few changes. We also want to be sure that we're adhering to our process and that we're all doing it the same way. There is, requirement for mission statement, and we also need to make room for new applicants. If we have, there is a term for committee members. We've never had to enforce that because we never have more than enough, but we may get to that point. So we're going to set the proper number of committee members that we can have, and if we get applicants and we reach that number, we're gonna ask some of the older members to possibly rotate on according to the guidelines. Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, last item on new business is just a reminder, we hit it earlier, annual membership meeting is tomorrow, 10 to 11 at the chapel. I'll give a park update, board of directors will make some brief comments. We'll have Larry provide a update on the golf course, and then just a reminder, vote. Absentee balloting ended today at 4 o'clock at member service. We've got 2 giant boxes full of ballots, so those that voted, thank you. Those that haven't, please remember to do so. Downstairs here tomorrow, polling station's open 10 to 2. So hope to see you there. And again, thank you for coming out to the town halls to get informed on, getting the right information, the accurate information, so you can make an informed decision. So, thank you.
Okay, at this time, we're ready for member comments. Please identify yourself, give us your lot number, comments only, and please be polite. We ask you to go to the microphone because this will be on YouTube and we want our recording to feature your lovely voices and comments as well.
Smooth.
I've been practicing.
My name is Kay Atkins. Is this working?
Just push the button up.
Yep, the green button's on. It's on.
Yep, it's on.
It's on. It's on.
My name is Kay Atkins, and I'm from K5443. I was looking at your new business, and I definitely agree with Resolution A. There were significant others. However, last year, I came to a couple of meetings and spoke, and I've written letters to your committees. And I wonder why the associate members without children can only, or the members without children can only have one associate member. I have no children, so obviously I have no grandchildren. If you count all of the people that are allowed to have, they could have 5, 10, maybe more associate members. But my nephews and my nieces and other people in my family that are as important to me as, other people are to your family is to you, and I still can only have one member. And I don't think that's quite fair.
We'll refer that to the Rules Committee and they can discuss it and get that to the board.
Okay, but last year I've written letters about it. Okay. Thank you.
My name is Dave Troshnet, Site 1334, Phase 3. I put together a letter and I emailed a copy of it to the board. It's concerning the conditions of the lake conditions in Phase 3. Once again, I'm making a plea to the board to address the poor lake conditions on the east end of Phase 3. I moved on to Site 1334 in 2014. 9 years ago, the channel had a few still active boat stakes. Boats, kayaks, and canoes frequently went up the Pigeon Creek toward the last site on the channel and even beyond to the culvert where the creek enters Lake Montague. My stake, 3050-52, was usable during most of the summer back in 2015. At that time, I was installing my dock at the beginning of the season with approximately 30 to 36 inches of black silted muck at the bottom of the lake, and that was measured out at about 20 feet from shore. The last few years, the muck at our end of the lake has been increasing exponentially. I am currently at 5 to 6 feet of muck with 3 thin layers of sand between the muck levels, usually caused by these heavy rains. This condition has rendered my boat stake unusable for my current boat. It also has proven to be unsafe for unsuspecting boaters who attempt to turn around in front of my dock. Recently, we had a boat stall in the muck in front of my site. The boater panicked, began because the wind was pushing him into shallow water. He attempted to jump out of his boat to stop the drift. He jumped into what he thought was 18 inches of water. The sand collapsed beneath his feet. He sunk into the muck up to his waist. He hung onto the boat rail while his brother helped free him from this quicksand-like condition. My neighbor and I rescued his boat and his family with ropes. I also have one more story to share, a potential life-threatening situation that happened 2 sites down from me. My neighbor fell off his dock at boat stake 3050 and into the muck between his boat and the dock. He was elderly, overweight, and physically unable to stand up and rescue himself from this predicament. Luckily, I heard him crying for help. His neighbor Ken and I mustered up all the strength we had to free him from this situation. His head was barely above the water when we arrived. Thinking back on this, I regret not reporting this incident sooner. I've contacted the board in the past about the muck and poor lake conditions in June of 2021. I was in regular contact with our past president, Gene, over possible dredging this section of Pigeon Creek and the approximate 1 to 2 acres on the east end of Lake Monterey. He assured me that he would look into it. He assigned the task of dredging quotes to Ben for maintenance. I never received a response whether the quotes for dredging had been secured. Gene did receive quotes from PLM for muck digesting pellets. That was not acted upon. I've been in contact with our current president and the lake committee. I've shared my concerns with them and even demonstrated to them the depth to which the muck has grown. My contacts have been numerous through personal meetings, emails, and texts. I feel that the lake in Phase 3 has been neglected long enough. It seems as though these high muck levels are affecting the overall health of Lake Monterey. The fishery back here is at its lowest level since I moved in, with 0 bass and bluegill caught. But 9 years ago, every time I would cast my line, I would catch something. Due to the muck, we have dangerously shallow water. Kayakers should not exit their boat thinking they can stand up safely. I've read extensively about the high muck levels in lakes. I suspect there is low oxygen levels and high phosphorus levels. There is high turbidity with visibility to less than 18 inches, especially after a rainstorm. A few years back, a Lake Monterey lake study produced an organic matter result of 22% for Phase 3. I would be curious to see what the new test would bring. I often see gases bubbling from the rotting leaves in the muck that potentially could be methane. Regular algae blooms are common. We have grasses, trees, and invasive plants growing in the muck and making our waterways smaller and smaller. BLM uses chemicals to treat the algae blooms in plants, only to create another layer of muck from the dead vegetation. The wise boaters no longer turn around in front of my dock. They turn around across from the pavilion in Phase 3, about the halfway point. The boats without a depth finder or those who cannot see the bottom attempt to turn around in front of my place. The unsuspecting either become stuck or rev their motors till they free themselves. I warn them when I can not to jump in the water and push. I understand, though, from many sources that Phase 3 has never been dredged since the initial construction over 51 years ago. It's well past the recommended period of dredging of about 20 years. I personally kayaked Phase 3 lake with rudimentary measuring tools, measuring muck depths and plotting them on a map. I would be happy to share my findings. I invite any and all board members to visit my site and witness the conditions themselves. Once again, my hope is that the park puts together some kind of short and long-term plan to remediate this portion of Lake Monterey before it becomes nothing more than a swamp, driving my neighbors and my site values to zero. The practice of doing nothing and eliminating boat stakes in the shallow areas is not the solution. Phase 3 lake has been serving as a catch basin for leaf and muck debris for years. These nutrient-rich waters feed the main lake, causing more weed and algae growth, forcing PLM to spray more and more undesirable chemicals in the lake. I feel we need to do a better job at managing our greatest asset. Once again, please look into this, discuss this with our president and lake committee, possibly hiring a lake management company to seriously evaluate these lake conditions. Sincerely, Mike Trashman. Can I respond?
Can I respond? I just want to respond. I read your letter today.
Okay.
I responded to you saying thanks. I'll be there next week sometime, middle of the week. I read the whole letter. After I read it to my wife. And she said, we got to do something about that.
I got here before the board meeting, I talked to a couple of members here. I think that you did a great job of explaining the issue. The last thing we want to see is someone get stuck in the muck. And we're gonna see what we can do. I know that there is an issue with trying to get the state to allow us to do the dredging. And as soon as we can expedite that, we're gonna address it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I want to thank the board for giving us this opportunity to address you. I appreciate it very much. Oh, sorry, Mel Trashevitz, site 1334. One of the things I'd like to ask, well, it's not a question. I'd like to propose that we put some kind of, like a list in the footnotes of people or companies that can remove docks for people who are unable to pull their own docks out of the water. So they have someone to contact and make arrangements for to remove their docks for them. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sandy Bresky, and I'm at K76, and I have a proposal for the Phase 3 pool. We seem to have lifeguards there for a very short period of time during the days, and I'm just wondering if there's not any way, like at the adult pool now, that we can put a scanner in and have that open to adults during the hours that there is not a lifeguard.
We can take a look at that with the pool committee and the rec department.
Hi, my name is Pat Pike, and I'm at 1327. And I'm just kind of coming and kind of talking about the things that Dave did, but on a safety issue. I remember when my husband and I bought in, this will be our 5th summer. And our kids, our grandkids and I, well, you guys would not know I'm a teacher. I'm scared to death. My voice is shaking. It's adults, it's not kids. Okay. Anyway, I felt safe to take my kids down to the lake, or my grandkids if they bring it down there, and I said, I'll be there in just a second. I don't feel that way anymore in Phase 3, because if my grandchild fell off the dock that they were fishing at, they could get stuck in that muck and that sand, and that there are places down there that it is 6 feet deep, and they could drown before I could get them. So I guess I look at that as liability, like the bridge that we put up, because now I feel safe for my grandkids when they turn 13 and they go to the other side and they've got a bridge. I want to feel safe when my grandkids are in our park, because that's why we bought here. And right now, Phase 3 isn't safe for them to go down there by the lake if they were to fall in.
Thank you.
Steve Knut from 1336, Phase 3. Same song, second verse of the channel.
We have a question for you guys. If we schedule a meeting with Eagle, will you guys all come and talk and tell your stories?
Absolutely, yes.
We need support in this endeavor too. So go ahead, sorry.
I forgot where I was going. My wife and I moved here 17 or 18 years ago. I forgot how long ago that was. But when we got here, just shortly after we got here, they were drafting or dredging the channel up to the culvert. How many of you remember that? You've been in that one.
I was in 8th grade back then.
I talked to the dredging company, they said it was in the works to be dredged on the other side of the culvert within 2 years. That didn't happen. They must be still doing the study. So you're gonna study a little harder, work with us, we'll work with you. Do us a favor and dredge that channel.
Very good, Steve.
Hi, I'm Gail Larson from 1331. I would just like to share with you that my husband was the man who fell off the dock and almost drowned. My husband was a safety professional working around the world in safety consulting. He was not an old man who just happened to fall off the dock. One of his big concerns, and I have been a resident of Phase 3 for close to 30 years, and one of his big concerns was that when we went out on our boat at night for the fireworks or any other night activity, there was no light by the tunnel going from Phase 3 to the rest of the lake. If you didn't know exactly where you were going and coming around and making the turn to get through that tunnel, it was a pretty scary thing at night. It's hard enough sometimes in the daytime when there are boats coming from the other direction. I would ask that the board and the park consider putting proper lighting in that tunnel so that people going through on boats and kayaks and whatever can get through that tunnel safely after dark. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, like I said, you know, if we could get Eagle's ear, you know, that's been our sticking point. You guys are great, you know, we would really appreciate your backup and your support. And honestly, if you could put some of those stories and help each other and get some of those stories in writing, like Dave's letter, it can't hurt anything, it can only help. So we appreciate all your support and, you know, understand your frustration and your concerns.
Well, we are trying to.
I mean, we're trying, but we gotta try harder, we gotta keep working at it, plugging at it. So Jeff will be talking about some of that tomorrow, I'm sure, you know, and we just gotta keep working at it. Okay. At this point, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you so much.